Hello, Newport, and welcome to From the Desk of the Mayor. I am so pleased to be here today with my fellow council member, Rick Ufford-Chase.
Good morning.
We have some exciting news. We had our council meeting last evening. It was held at the Gateway. We had a phenomenal turnout, and everybody in the audience, thank you for coming out. Thank you to all of the people who worked on the project we're going to be discussing today. And thank you for all of the productive input as we went through that specific agenda item. Last night, the council voted unanimously to allow the sharing of the revitalization plan that Councilmember Rick Ufford-Chase is going to explain to you all now. Thank you.
Good morning, Madam Mayor. How are you this morning?
I'm good. We had a successful meeting last night.
It was pretty great, and it was nice to be home by 8:15. So
I know, that was good too. So if we just put this on every
time
week, we got it.
Exactly. So I'll just give a quick history of kind of how we got to where we are, if that would
Sure.
help, so people understand the context. So we began a conversation back in February, I believe it was, between Newport Downtown Development and Newport City Council. Interestingly, that was before I became a council member. So that was when I am the director of Newport Downtown Development. The council signed an MOU with Newport Downtown Development asking NDD to manage the process of creating a detailed master plan. And so the council was pretty insistent, actually, that it needed to take seriously all of the various plans that have been done before this. I have someone handed me a plan from back in 1987.
Correct.
So like 40 years ago this last week. And I can see elements of that plan in what we've done, but we took very seriously basically the plans beginning about 2008 forward. And the first step was that NDD went out and put out what's called an RFP, a request for proposals. That went out to, I think, 13 or 16 different companies. Eventually, we got some proposals in from that request, and we came back to City Council. And the City Council, by now I was on City Council, we voted to go ahead with a contract with VHB, a company out of Burlington. And so that company, interestingly, is a company that's done work for Newport before. Many people might remember the plan that was done called the Waterfront and Downtown Master Plan that was done in 2018. And that plan was done by VHB. And then there were two housing studies, they weren't housing feasibility studies, they were hotel feasibility studies that were done also by VHB. So VHB knows the community very well, and at the council's direction, VHB went pretty deep. They knew that their goal was to do what they called a granular look at the previous work that had been done from kind of the 60,000 foot level. Now the purpose was to say, what does it look like when we go site by site? So this proposal had three major parts in it. One was a housing study, which has never really been done formally for Newport, to kind of look at what the housing need is here. The second was, and the meat of the proposal that came back to us, or the recommendation, was a series of site development plans for 9 different sites in our designated downtown. And then the final part was a recommendation about funding and including a special treatment for what's called TIF, tax increment financing.
So also, the people of Newport should know that we were able to get grant money to pay for this study.
Yes, so technically the proposal, the contract was between the City of Newport and VHB, and it will be paid for. We haven't written the final checks yet, but the city will pay for it entirely from grant money that came in. So no money came out of the operating budget.
And that's correct. So there was some money that had been sitting out there, and I reached out to the administration, and they said we could use this money, the money that was there, for this particular project. And so I did get the invoice, I did submit it, and then once the city pays for it, we will send it off for the reimbursement. So I'm excited about that because now we can go forward, and this is just the beginning.
I think so, yes.
So will you please tell all of our residents and the rest of Vermont what the next steps are? We're going to have meetings, we're going to keep this moving forward. It's not just, here's a plan, thank you, read it, and we wish you well.
No, that's right, thank you. So what it's important to understand is VHB actually did a series of some stakeholder meetings, one in person back in August, and then several that were done by video conference. And so there is quite a bit of community engagement in the proposal as it stands. But we've built in a process by which, now that the council has approved its distribution with the community, anyone can go online and read the full report. And there's actually a survey that you can link to from the Newport Downtown Development website, which is called discovernewportvt.com. And you can follow the survey link and actually give comment property by property about the development possibilities that are laid out in the report. That comment period lasts basically 8 days. We will take comments from now through a week from tomorrow at noon. And that's the day before Thanksgiving. That means that we'll have Thanksgiving weekend for the Economic Development Task Force and the council members to look at what's come back in and to make some final recommendations to VHB, which will go to them the first week of December. And then finally, VHB will return a final draft of the report for the council's consideration in mid-December.
So I believe I'm correct that either you or council member or the president for Sean is going to post the report up on our city website.
Happened last night.
Happened last night. See, I went to bed last night after the council meeting.
Yes,
well,
so
thank you for that.
It's a little tricky if people aren't used to kind of navigating the council website, but if you want to find it through the council website, you go to newportvermont.org, and there's a section called Documents, and under that I think there's something it's called something like Reports and Plans. And you can click on that, and the thing at the top of that list now is this new report, so you can get it either from that or from discovernewportvt.com.
Wonderful, that's fantastic. And as you know, I have my mayor's hours on Monday mornings from 9 to 11, and we have dedicated a minimum of 2 where you can come in and actually discuss this plan with me. Is that correct?
Well, just to be sure we're on the same
Yeah.
page, I think we also agreed that you would do 10 to 11 on Wednesday
Yes,
mornings.
that's correct.
Right? So
That's
for the
correct.
next 2 Wednesdays, tomorrow and next Wednesday,
Right. That's
that
exactly
anybody
right.
who wants to come just talk about the plan in particular can find you.
That's correct. But I don't want the people who come on Mondays to think they're not allowed to talk to me about that. Monday morning's open for you to talk to me about anything that's out here in Newport. So, but there are dedicated times where we are going to specifically speak about this plan. So I welcome you to come, and I will get that information over to downtown, right? And so I want to thank you for this, because this is something that I have wanted, you have wanted, the people have wanted. We want to stop Newport from just being this drive-through city. We have the water, we have another country across the water. I mean, we have all of Vermont, we have an airport, and right now we don't want Newport to turn into a ghost town. We want Newport to be the city it was designed to be. And you're making that happen. That has to feel really good.
Last night felt great, and it was a huge effort that a lot of people were involved in. The council was deeply involved. All of our department heads at one level or another were engaged in this process to give their own opinions. And on NDD's side, we have 2 task forces that have been active in the last year. One is called the Economic Development Task Force, and the other is a housing committee. And both of those groups have been meeting regularly and providing input that was considered by VHB as they did their work. So there are just a whole lot of people from our board with NDD to the council who have had their hands in this.
So the way the report was designed, I thought it was presented really well. I mean, it was pretty much, let's walk down the city of Newport. Let's take a walk down Main
Yes,
Street.
you really started at the Maple Fields corner and walked down to the causeway, across the causeway, and out to East Side.
Right, and that's what you want to see. And it showed, here's an option for this particular piece of property, but it wasn't saying you must do this. This was looking at, here are some really good opportunities based upon zoning requirements, height requirements, location to the water, who's on the water side, who's across the street, how buildings are currently owned. And it wasn't forcing anything. It was just, here's a suggestion and then we'll figure it out as we decide which project is going to be the starting point.
Yes. I mean, I would describe it as the difference between being about possibility and about prescription.
Good.
Right? This does not prescribe what has to happen.
Exactly.
It names possibilities for what might happen. And then obviously there are a lot of things that are going to be involved in how we make those decisions. Where does the financing come from? How do the property owners feel about engaging it? Because a lot of property would be impacted by this plan if all of it were to happen. What do the developers think will actually pencil, as they say? How can they make the numbers work? You know, there's just a lot of work that will have to go into juggling. And so one of the things I appreciated about the report was on many of the first floor locations, I think probably all of them actually at one level or another, they put what they called spaces that can be activated for commercial use, for municipal use, for community use. You know, so there's no, it doesn't say this is what has to go here and this is what has to go there. It says here are the kinds of things that could go into each of these first floor locations, with an emphasis then also on building up residences, because the big report finding in the housing section is that Newport needs to build hundreds of units of housing. We're talking about probably 300 units of housing over the next decade in order to respond to the housing crisis that we're in.
And regarding that, it's various levels of housing. It's not one type of housing. And we want the mix. We want people to come to Newport from all walks of life and be able to earn income here. We want them to have jobs, and housing is going to help that happen as well. So we have opportunities with the new ideas that you're putting out there, whether it be retail or whether it be other services that are thought about. So I think it's wonderful. I really do. This is the first time after, and I've looked at all the plans, including the 1800 plan, that I've seen something actually fall into place that is doable.
Yes, I think it will take intention and a lot of commitment on all our parts to follow through. And it will be a step-by-step process. We can't make it all happen at once. We pick a project that we think is manageable. We put the pieces together and start that project. And our experience in discussing this development process in other communities where it's been successful is that success breeds success. That as we do one, developers will be interested and property owners will be interested in talking about the next one and the one after that. That's right. And to return to your point about housing, one of the principal findings of this report is that we should absolutely be talking about kind of a mix of income level, housing that is appropriate for different income levels in this community. So it's not all lower income or subsidized in some way, nor is it all high end to be attractive to people who want to come live on a beautiful lake, right, from wherever they may come from, but especially that what's often called the missing middle, right? What do we do to build housing that is for folks who are professional and who are starting out at the school district or the hospital or one of our manufacturing facilities in town and who really need a place to get started? So senior housing is another piece of the action, right? We have to build housing so that the older adults in our community who are living in 3 and 4 bedroom homes and don't really want to manage that property anymore can reasonably move to somewhere that feels comfortable and safe and inviting to them, opening up housing that's then appropriate for younger families to raise their kids there as well.
And once all of these decisions are made, I'm hoping that there's going to be a look, and we discussed this, at the facade. What is going to be the streetscape look that you want to have? So it's not just spot projects. There's going to be some welcoming professional theme that comes out that's aesthetically nice for Newport.
Yes, I think as we move into conversations with developers and architects, one of the things we'll be looking toward is how do we build this so that when you walk from Maple Fields down the street and out to East Side, you feel like you're walking in a community that doesn't feel homogenous, allows for some diversity, but also feels as if there's been some thought about what a downtown can and should look like. You know, the opportunity that we have here is remarkable. So much of our downtown is developable right now. And in many other communities, that people don't have a blank slate or at least as many pieces of blank slate as we have to begin to work on. So those blank slates give us opportunity, and we need to be thoughtful about what ties them together.
And I think what's important, and this was brought out in a comment last night, everybody wants this to happen because, you know, we're such instant gratification people. It is going to take a while. So it's not going to happen in 30 days, but the discussions and bringing in professionals that we need can actually happen over the next several months as we pick our project and continue to speak with the powers that be. We are going to have communications with the administration. We're going to have communications with private property owners. But this is what we want right now, and that's the purpose of this. Tell our listeners, please, about the library meeting.
Yes, so thank you. Did I miss that one earlier? I think I did. So Monday night, the 25th, this coming Monday at 6 p.m., we will be holding a public forum at the Goodrich Memorial Library, and that will be virtual as well. So if you go on our website, the city website and the Discover Newport VT website, and on Facebook and social media pages, you can find a link to come in by video if you prefer. But it'll be an in-person meeting. No outsiders for this one. We won't have VHB staff there. This will be our Economic Development Task Force leadership, and I hope leaders from the city as well, who will come and just have conversation with residents about the things that make them excited, the things that make them anxious, what are the warning signs that we need to be watching for about the community we want to build, and how do we make sure we all work together to build something that's both beautiful and accessible for the people who live here.
And the good part as well, and you brought this up, our department heads, whether it was our superintendent of streets, our zoning administrator, our police regarding safety and identification, they all participated in this. When they were asked for information, they reached out to me and I authorized them to share the information, and that helped put this together. So we should applaud them. They're doing not only the work for the city, but they are helping rebuild our city.
Well, and I go a step further. I think to a person, they have a dream about what Newport could be too. They've given heart and soul to this community, and they really want to see it thrive.
And they have an understanding because they touch it.
Every day.
They touch it every day.
Right.
So is there anything else you want to tell our listeners? Because I think this is one of the most exciting projects that's going to happen, at least since I've been the mayor. And I look forward to helping as much as I can to make this happen. And I know you, as my fellow council member, are going to do everything. And it was a unanimous vote, so I think all of our council members are going to help. And I know that President of the council, Sean, is definitely going to be part of this. He's already behind the scenes helping in any way we need for promotion and working on websites for us and doing what needs to be done. So I'm excited. We're finally unified, and we've got the public out there, and we're all going to work together. Anything else you want to say before we say thank you, thank you, thank you?
You know, for people my age, maybe and a little older, I'll use a metaphor that has been obvious to me, which is the story of Lucy Van Pelt and Charlie Brown and the football, right? And time after time, Charlie Brown wanted to kick that football, and Lucy would promise him that she would hold the football for him. And time after time, she would jerk it away, and he'd go flying up in the air and land flat on his back. And then she would convince him to try it again. And I think there's a sense in which our community can reasonably feel like, you know, we've taken it on the chin in this community. This community's taken some really challenging knocks over the last decade, for sure. And part of what we need to do is make sure that we are wide-eyed, not wide-eyed, I guess, clear-eyed about what we need to do to work together, and also willing to take a risk, because we're not going to move this community to a different spot that feels like the kind of welcoming community and the hub for the Northern NEK that Newport has traditionally been. To get us back to that point, it's going to take a lot of effort on all our parts, and we're going to have to trust that the football's going to be there when we try and kick it.
So as somebody much younger than you, I want to say I agree. We need to be thoughtful.
Right.
And we need to take risks, but they're going to be risks that are not shooting from the hip risks. These are going to be risks that you take when you do business, but not anything that's going to be something that would be harmful to the city.
Right,
They're
because
going
we're
to be
doing our homework.
methodical. Exactly.
We're doing our
taking
homework.
Informed
Yes.
risks that business people do, because this is business.
Right.
I mean, but right now, you're right. We are the hub of the Northeast Kingdom, and we are going to stay the hub of the Northeast Kingdom. And this is the plan that is going to make it happen. So to all of our residents of Newport, please come out. Come to all of these opportunities that you have to speak to us. We will be speaking to one another, making sure that your voice is heard. And thank you, NEK-TV, for allowing us to speak to Newport. Have a wonderful week. Thank you.